Good evening Facebook and happy Easter. I am really excited to be introducing the first of my Facebook Lives regarding my forthcoming book, Mind and Body Miracle. So on a previous Facebook Live, I asked my Facebook friends if they would take a look at the chapters that are going to be on the book and decide out of those chapters which ones they would be interested to hear a little bit more about. So one of the chapters, the first one that I'll be talking about this evening, is called Reduce Your Sugar Fix. Now, that's a good choice, so well done. Thank you for choosing Reduce Your Sugar Fix. It's a great choice because when my sister, shout out to my sister Joanna, hello, love you. She's been proofreading my book and she has been giving me lots of feedback, and I'd like to repeat the feedback that she gave on the sugar fix, but there was quite a lot of graphic language, let's put it that way, because she couldn't believe the things that I had revealed in the chapter. So it's great that you've chosen to learn more about this chapter. I'm really, really excited to share it with you, and I'm also feel like we need to take responsibility because for our sugar, the amount of sugar that we have in our diet, because sure as hell the government and the food industry are not going to help us out on this one at all. So we need to be empowered with the information so we can take responsibility. So the first thing I want to do is just explain a little bit about the layout of the book. So the book's called Mind Body Miracle. It's in 3 sections. The first section is the mind section, the second section is the body section, and then it's tied up in the miracle section at the end. So this is part of the body section from Reduce Your Sugar Fix. Each section has 7 chapters, and each chapter starts with, this chapter will help you if. So just to kick this off, I'm going to read you from Reduce Your Sugar Fix manuscript. How exciting is that? So this is the pages printed out from Reduce Your Sugar Fix, and this is how I start the Reduce Your Sugar Fix chapter. So it starts with, the deadliest poison in the world, the deadliest poisons in the world taste sweet, and that's a quote from Nenia Campbell, and it says, this chapter will help you if you are caught in a perpetual sugar cycle and need help to break it, want to know the difference between sugar and artificial sweeteners, want to know the real reasons that you can't just have one chocolate and it has nothing to do with willpower. So I'm going to cover a little bit of those today. I'm going to get through as much as I possibly can. Obviously I can't give everything away because it's in the book, but you'll see that there is a link to pre-order the book, which comes out in July. It comes out with Rethink Press, but you can pre-order it now, register that you're interested, pay for it, and you will be sent a signed copy of the book. I feel so silly saying that. Okay, so basically the first thing about sugar is you may have noticed that there's lots and lots of different names for sugar. In fact, when I do a workshop on sugar, I explain and show a list of over 100 names up on the screen, 100 different names that sugar is used, that's used for sugar. And I think the food industry do that just to kind of bamboozle us a bit so we don't actually know what we're having. But to break it down, we have sucrose, which is a kind of an old term for sugar. We don't use it as much anymore, but that sucrose is naturally occurring from plants, so i.e. sugar cane. And sucrose comes in 2 different parts. So there's 2 different parts to sucrose. The first part is fructose, and fructose is a fruit sugar, and so that's the sugar that's always in the fruit, and it's metabolized only by the liver. And then there's glucose. So glucose is a simple carbohydrate, and it fuels the body, it regulates our insulin, and it's sometimes called dextrose, so look out for that, and that's metabolized by every single cell in the body. So that's just basically, you're going to see lots of other names. I mean, we see lactose. Lactose is the milk in sugar. You've got all the artificial sweeteners, which we're going to touch on later. But really, just they're the 3 main ones that we need to focus on. Sucrose, which is made up of fructose and glucose has another name also called dextrose. So hopefully that's not too confusing, but I want you to know where all the sugar is coming from, which is basically really one place unless it's artificial. So, some key facts about sugar. First thing, your liver can only store 60 to 90 grams of sugar, depending on your body size, but it's around 60 to 90 grams of sugar, so at one time. So your liver can only hold that. Once there's excess, it will turn to fat, and then that fat gets deposited usually around the internal organs in the midsection. which is not a good thing. It's the least place that we want to have any body fat, because that's visceral fat around your organs. That's not a good thing. It's going to really inhibit the way our organs are functioning. So recommended daily amounts. People get confused about this, but recommended daily allowance for sugar. So we've got 20 grams, or about 5 cubes. And just bear in mind that 1 cube is 1 teaspoon. So 20 grams, 5 teaspoons or 5 cubes for 4 to 6 year olds. And then 24 grams, which is 6 cubes, 6 teaspoons for 7 to 10 year olds. And then 30 grams, which is 7.5 cubes, 7.5 teaspoons for adults. So recommended daily allowance for an adult is about 30 grams. Let's put that into perspective. This was not something I pulled out of my store cupboard. This is something that I keep in stock for my workshops. And this has 35 grams of sugar in it. So just a standard can of full fat Coke has 35 grams of sugar in it. So if we just rewind a bit, I just said recommended daily allowance is 30 grams. 1 can of Coke and you've already gone 5 grams over your recommended daily allowance. Horrendous, right? It does get worse. Anyone ever had a McDonald's milkshake? Chocolate flavour, is that your favourite? 48 grams of sugar in a McDonald's milkshake. Do you know how many teaspoons that is? 12. 12 teaspoons, 12 cubes, 48 grams of sugar in a McDonald's milkshake. Have you ever let your children have one? I have too. Way before all of this, I have too. So hold my hands up. This is not about being judgmental. It's about having knowledge so that you can make changes. Obviously, since I've known that, my children have never had a McDonald's milkshake since. Okay, here's a shocker. And if you've ever seen a Facebook Live before that I did for Family Nutrition with Kate Bentley, this is something you're already going to know. This is a Skittles, a bag of Skittles. It's called a tear and share bag. Not actually that much in there. I have been in a cinema and seen children demolish these on their own. Do you want to know how much sugar is in this? So just go back to this, say an 8-year-old is having this in the cinema and they ate it all themselves. There's about 24 grams that an 8-year-old should be having a day. In this bag is 156 grams of sugar. 156. I've got people saying here that they never share them. There you go. So do you know that that is 39 teaspoons or 39 cubes of sugar, which is over 5 times the recommended daily allowance for an adult. So let's just rewind again. The liver can only store 60 to 90 grams. 156 grams in here. So you know after this bag, it is all going straight to the fat around your internal organs, because your liver can't cope with that. So you're overloading a detoxification organ from the body. The liver is one of the detoxification organs, and you're overloading that with 156 grams of sugar. As far as I'm concerned, this product, with them recommended daily allowances, should not be on the market at all. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. So I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you this so that you know and that you can make the changes for you and your family. Okay, so Jamie Oliver, who's also on a bit of a sugar mission like me, Jamie Oliver done a documentary in 2015 called The Sugar Rush, and he stated that the average Briton consumes 160 grams of sugar a day. So that's, again, 5 times over your recommended daily allowance, which is, you know, this is why we have epidemics in diabetes, heart disease, obesity, and dare I say it, cancer. Now, I'm saying dare I say it because cancer is a little bit of a controversial one, because there isn't a lot of admission about cancer and the links between cancer and sugar. I'm going to share something with you which is in the book. And I honestly, wholeheartedly believe and say in the book that cancer cells uptake sugar at a rate of 10 to 12 times healthy cells. How do I know this? Okay, let's look at PET scans. So if you ever find a lump and feel like you have, Debbie Mullin, of course you can share, the more people that know this information the better. if you ever go to the hospital because you found a lump and they suspect that it could be cancerous, or they want to rule out that it could be cancerous, you'll be given a PET scan. So what does a PET scan involve? A PET scan involves a tiny drink of sugary water. It's basically glucose. So remember when I went back to the beginning, it's glucose. You're asked to drink a sugary glass of water. Why are you asked to drink a sugary glass of water? Because then they can scan you, and that water will illuminate all the cancerous cells. Why does that water that contains sugar illuminate the cancerous cells and not the healthy cells? Because it's absorbed a lot quicker by the cancerous cells. So how can sugar not feed cancer? How can sugar not feed cancer when what we're actually using in a hospital, a PET scan, is actually based around sugar? It's a really, really frightening fact. So, it is controversial. I want to read you something. So this is an extract from the book. This is an extract from somebody else's book that I've put in my book. He is fantastic, and he's all out of order. Sorry about that. Right. So Gary Taubes, who is a Harvard graduate and award-winning science writer, he specialises in diet and nutrition, and he's got a new book out called The Case Against Sugar. And this is a quote from Gary Taubes that I've actually taken and used in my book, and obviously credited Gary Taubes for it. So he says, just as diabetes was rare in traditional societies until they began eating a Western diet, researchers noticed the same was true for cancer. By the 60s, public health authorities believed that many cancers were potentially preventable with changes of diet. About 10 years ago, scientists discovered that the higher the level of insulin people had in their blood, the greater the chance they would develop cancer. What's more, giving a diabetes drug that lowered insulin levels was associated with a lower risk of cancer. But why should cancer, which happens when cells grow out of control, be affected by high levels of insulin? It's because insulin does many things in the human body, including stimulating cells to multiply and tumours to grow. So I wanted to share that with you. I think it was unfair for me to say that there's epidemics in diabetes, heart disease, obesity and cancer without explaining why I think that there's a link between sugar and cancer. It is controversial. We've only got to look at kind of mill and coffee mornings at how controversial it is, because should we be selling cakes at a mill and coffee morning to raise money for a cancer charity? We shouldn't really, but we do. Again, there's more on that in the book. So, what's actually happened over the last few centuries is our increase in sugar is just going up and up and up. And to give you an idea, so last century, we consumed 2 kilograms per person per year. Today, we consume 1 kilogram per person per week. That's right. So we've gone from 2 kilograms per person per year to 1 kilogram per person per week. I've got all the little wow emojis coming up. I know, it's crazy. So this is actually a sentence that I've taken from the book. In the book I ask, do consumers lack willpower or manufacturers lack ethics? So if you've ever blamed your willpower, it has very little to do with willpower, and I'm going to share with you what I know. So again, if you followed my Facebook Lives, you may already know this, because I've done a Facebook Live before, I think in January, about don't blame your willpower. But I'm just going to touch on this now because I think it's really, really important. And again, there's more detail in the book. So I talk about the bliss point. So the bliss point is millions and millions of pounds are spent on researching the bliss point by the food industry. And they are doing this because they want you to buy more of their products. So the bliss point is the perfect combination of sugar, fat and salt when you just eat it and go, oh my God, I need more of that. And that it is an actual science to it. So I'm going to read you another quote from another guy who wrote another awesome book. Again, I've shared this quote in my book. So the guy who I'm quoting here is called Paul Stitt. He's the author of a book called Beating the Food Giants. Paul Stitt has fantastic first-hand experience of all the tricks that they use, because he actually used to be a research scientist for Quaker. So, and this is just a short quote, but he says, "There's many nasty tricks are used by food giants to make you overeat. Adding lots of fat, sugar and salt is the most obvious one." So from somebody that actually worked in the industry and has written a book about this, he's saying, you know, that the food industry does do this. So what they know about is, they know that the hypothalamus in the brain, which is the part of the brain that regulates appetite, it's the neural centre that regulates appetite. It's also known as the apostat, which is your appetite thermostat. So it basically only recognises fat, sugar and salt if it's being eaten with nutrients. So it's kind of similar to, there's all this thing about, oh, you don't have so much fruit because it's got so much sugar in. Yeah, but it's also got the fibre and the nutrients. So the sugar doesn't tend to have a massive impact like it would if it was a juice. That's why juice is so much worse than having a piece of fruit. But the fat, sugar and salt in food, when we eat it, our apostat recognises that you're eating. So it says, okay, I can see there's food coming in, but where's the nutrients? No nutrients, let's keep eating. I've still got an appetite, I'm still hungry. Let's keep eating, let's keep going, eat more, eat more, eat more. And this is going to go on. This is why, and I've said it before, Pringles could wholeheartedly use the slogan, once you pop, you can't stop, with very little research, because they'd researched the bliss point. And they knew, because of the ingredients they use in their food, you weren't going to be able to put that down, because they'd researched the bliss point. This stuff's completely legal. You know, that they're completely legal, that they are messing with a hypothalamus in our brain to make us eat more and more rubbish. And sugar is a really, really big one. So, sugar, fat, salt are really, really easy to overeat, because we're not getting the nutrients with them if we are eating rubbish. So sugar, fat and salt is okay if it's got other nutrients with it, but still in moderation. Excess sugar also elevates the dopamine in the brain. So dopamine is what controls your brain's reward and pleasure centre, and long-term consumption of sugar will reduce the amount of dopamine that you're getting, that you're producing. So what's going to happen is, you're going to eat more sugar, your dopamine is going to start being reduced, and you're going to need more sugar to get the same level of reward. So in short, there's much more on this in the book, but in short, hello depression, goodbye motivation. True story. So I'm just going to read another extract that says, this is taken from the book, word for word. According to research by David Ludwig, MD, PhD, the part of the brain that lights up when eating high sugar foods is the very same part of the brain that's triggered by cocaine and heroin. So we are modern day victims to the food industry. It's clear to see that sugar is a drug and we are a nation of addicts, and the food giants are the supplier. The huge price we are paying for the perpetual sugar cycle we are in is our well-being, with an ever-increasing list of health issues that can be tracked back to sugar. And here's a few examples of those. So obviously increased risk of obesity, heart disease, cancer, as mentioned before, impaired immune function, chromium deficiency, which is a trace mineral that regulates your blood sugar, accelerated aging, because sugar will increase the aging process, tooth decay and gum disease, behaviour and cognition in children, so it's linked to ADHD in children, increased release of stress hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol, and it also, which isn't in here, might add it, it will increase or decrease the way that you absorb vitamins and minerals. So a really crucial one that I can think of straight away is it inhibits your absorption of zinc. And zinc will help to regulate your immune system. So if you are zinc deficient, it may be because you're having too much sugar in your diet. If you are having too much sugar in your diet, then you will be inhibiting zinc. So that as well. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So what's the alternatives? What are the alternatives? So we do have some advice here from the Global Diabetes Community website. Would you like to hear it? You're going to love this. So On the Global Diabetes Community website, diabetes.co.uk, it states that sugar needs to be kept to a minimum for diabetics, but really for all of us, and they recommend that the one way to do this is to use sweeteners. Yeah, sweeteners, because sweeteners will not raise blood glucose levels, and unlike sugar, they're calorie-free. Perfect, we'll all be really healthy when we consume sweeteners. Not so. Unfortunately, most sweeteners, with the exception of sugar alcohols and stevia, are man-made chemicals. They're not found in nature, and the human body is not designed to process these chemicals, so it's not bioavailable. We cannot break it down, we cannot absorb it. It's toxic to the body, but yet the diabetes communities and the diabetes website, their advice is have the sweeteners. Crazy. Now I've got laughing emojis. So I'll tell you a little bit about aspartame. So aspartame is one of the most widely used sweeteners. It's very, very controversial. It's controversial because some people say it's not that damaging, but I'm going to tell you some facts and I'll let you decide if you think it's damaging. So it's been approved by the Food Drugs Agency, and it's on the generally regarded as safe list, which is the GRAS list. But it's actually 75% of adverse reactions that are reported to the Food Drugs Agency are linked to aspartame, 75%. So in 1980, the FDA banned aspartame because 3 independent scientists linked it to brain tumours. Then in 1981, they reapproved it. Why did they reapprove it? Because there was a change in government and a little bit of political espionage, and they reapproved it. And then in 1983, it was approved for use in soft drinks, which is just crazy because then it's in liquid form straight to the brain. So there's 900, in fact more than 900 published and peer-reviewed studies into the detrimental effects of aspartame, and the longest study on aspartame was for 22 years. It was carried out by Harvard University, and what they concluded at the end of these 2 years is just 1 diet drink a day over a long term could lead to leukemia. So my battery's going on my phone, hopefully my Facebook Live is not going to collapse, but anyway, so I'll round it up. So yeah, it concluded that just 1 diet drink a day could lead to leukemia. So if you are drinking your Diet Cokes and anything with no added sugar, then it's probably going to have aspartame in, which I just think, yeah, Lisa, I agree with you, it is evil. And you know why it's evil? Because when they put no added sugar on a label, then that's aimed at kind of health conscious parents that are saying, oh, I don't want my child to have sugar, I'm really looking out for their sugar intake, so I'll go for this no added sugar juice. But actually when you turn the label around, what it has in it is aspartame, which is far, far worse because it is not even recognised by our body, whereas sugar is recognised, but we just have too much of it. So we need to have some tips to reduce the sugar intake. So I'm going to give you a few tips now, but obviously there's loads and loads and loads of tips in the book, of course I'm going to say that. So one of the tips is be label savvy. I told you a bit about the names that you can see for sugar. I told you about the amount of sugar that you should be having on a daily basis. So be label savvy and look at how much sugar is in things. So for example, this is more than your recommended daily allowance. You know, you're going to blow your whole recommended daily allowance on 1 drink. Just crazy. So be label savvy and boycott processed food, because usually sugar's used as a preservative in processed food. If you want to use a sweetener, there's great sweeteners like stevia. That's a great sweetener, but you know, get some decent quality stevia from Whole Foods stores. Usually the ones that you get in the supermarket are rubbish. You can use things like dates or spices like cinnamon in baking to sweeten things instead of heaps and heaps of sugar. And swap your white simple carbohydrates for more complex carbohydrates, because then you are going to decrease your sugar intake as well. So there's much more information in the book. In the book I've got recipes, menu plans, shopping lists, a whole chapter called Clean Eating Simplified, and You've got the link here to pre-order the book as well. So the book, I think I said, is coming out in July. It's coming out with Rethink Press, and but you can pre-order it now, pay for it now, and I will send you a signed copy when it goes out, before it goes out into the shops. So you'll be among the first people to get it. So just to summarise, I actually think that sugar is the new tobacco. So about 50 years ago, the tobacco industry would not admit the amount of damage that damaging ingredients it had in its products. Now we know so much better. Less than 10 years ago, cigarettes were sold in vending machines in hospitals. Think about what's in vending machines in hospitals now. Soft drinks and chocolate bars. You know, it's crazy. We've swapped one thing for another. And I actually say in the book that I actually think that sugar is worse than tobacco, because never was tobacco marketed to children. We are specifically marketing products, the sugary products, to children. I mean, who do you think this brightly coloured rainbow bag is marketed at? It's not marketed at 40-year-old people, and yet it's got 7-8 times the recommended daily allowance for a child. I mean, it's outrageous. It's disgusting. So release your sugar shackles from the food industry. You don't have to be their victim. You don't have to allow them to supply you with sugar. It's about being empowered to make better choices, having this knowledge and using it. So be empowered instead of being fearful. Take control of your health, because you will feel so much better just by limiting it. And thank you for listening. So click the link to pre-order if you want to have the book. It's out in July. Next Monday at 8 PM I'll be doing another Facebook Live, and that one's from the mind section of the book, and that's called The Power of the Subconscious Mind, and how we're not using our mind to gain so much in life. And I haven't really got much else to say apart from have a great evening, and please believe that inside your mind and your body there's a miracle. See you later.